I got goals to chase, I got roads to pave. Not yet where I wanna be, but I got close today. I went ghost today, I got least to say. I be focused on these dreams like I didn't sleep today.
Carlos, welcome. We want to, thank you for jumping on our new podcast. We've been doing some different, we used to call it Shop Talk, but now we've kind of upgraded. We're in a little podcast studio. So thank you for joining us. Welcome. When we were kind of thinking of guests, you're the godfather, man. You're the godfather. You're kind of the reason we're in.
Totally.
This
The
business.
Well, I don't know
Relikks
about that,
exists.
but
No, listen, man.
I
our
go
big
back
reason.
a very long time.
We grew up. You may not remember us as kids, but we used to hang out in Sluggers, buy our Pokemon cards, our hockey cards there. We're from that area, so you're a big part of our hobby upbringing, but you're also, you're a name. People know you, locally, Canada-wide, and in the States, right? So we wanted to make sure we had you on this podcast just to, you've got a wealth of knowledge as being a shop owner, as being a high-end collector, of being connected to distributors, being connected to hobby shops in general. So once again, thank you for joining us.
No problem. I'm happy to be on.
Amazing.
One thing I love to start with, Carlos, because my memory of the hobby, like the single moment I knew I was hooked and cemented, was actually a moment that happened inside of Sluggers. It was when I think it was 94 or 95 Pinnacle came out, and they had the special inserts of the goalie masks that had like a skybox metal finish to it. And I remember pulling Felix Potvin mask and feeling like this insane wave of joy come over me. And I think from that moment, I felt like I was ultimately hooked. I'd love to know if there's a moment like that exists for you, that you can sort of recollect in your memory that's like, this is it. Like, I'm in it for the long haul.
Wow, that list would be long. I've had so many big pulls in my life, from Jordan rookies to dual Jordan LeBron autos. Wow. I can't even, I'm not sure where to begin on that one. There's almost no defining moment, but unless I go back and talk about 1979 ADO Peachy, that would probably been it for me as a kid, because I knew who Wayne Gretzky was, and I remember pulling his cards, at the age of 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah. How did you transition from being a hobbyist to being making a business out of it?
Okay. I had bought and sold cards probably during the entire 80s, I would say. And then about 89, I had done some work for the original owner of Sluggers. I had brought cards into the country. I'd imported. And what happened was he had owned Sluggers, and I think it was 90 or 91, he was getting a divorce, and Sluggers was up for sale. And really, that's how I transitioned. I worked something out with him, and he wanted a certain price. I met that price, and it just started from there. I've kind of always wanted a hobby store, but back in 89 through 91, I'm going to say it was challenging, but it was really good. You have to remember the world was very different. No internet, no eBay, no social media. It was a completely different world obviously that back then than it exists today, right?
So it would be unfair to the viewers not to bring this up as you were talking about, buying the shop and all of that. a couple of years ago, you became a little bit of a somewhat of a celebrity, because people knew you. You were featured, made a cameo in a movie. And I know I spoke to you about it a little bit, I think, at one of the shows we bumped into each other. You said you made a lot of, making a cameo in that movie brought a lot of deals. And that movie, I believe, is called Jack of All Trades. And loosely, kind of the movie moved to other topics, but involved Sluggers a lot. And, the original owners and the sale of Sluggers. And you made a cameo. So, that was super cool to see. I know you mentioned you got a lot of deals out of that. Tell us a little bit. Do you have an IMDb now, or you got credit as an actor in that movie, or what?
No, I got no credit whatsoever. Stuart, who is Jack's son, had asked me to do it. I can't remember. It was several years ago, and I agreed to do it. He put me on there because I think they were afraid, the family, that I had some animosity towards Jack, the original owner, and I didn't. I told them that store changed my life. Like, it literally changed my life. And I could only be happy. I think Jack had run into some difficulties after and probably wasn't the favorite of many people, but generally speaking, that store, it completely changed my life, my trajectory. And I've always been grateful for it. Certainly it was great in the earlier days, before eBay, before really the internet. I shouldn't say before the internet. There was internet, but it was dial-up. But it wasn't the internet we know today. Let's just put it that way. But it was really good. I enjoyed the people coming in. I enjoyed talking about sports. I had a lot of people come in from all different areas, but I understood cards very, very well. And that store was a blessing. It was an absolute blessing for me. I can't ever forget it. It's always a part of me, and it always will be. And the business deals and the people that the friends and the contacts I made from Sluggers were invaluable.
For sure.
One thing, Carlos, I remember you and I chatting about over the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I really wanted to talk about this on the podcast, is that, I think you're one of the true vendors that has like a genuine cross-border business, right? You operate in both Canada and the United States very actively. And you were mentioning to me, some of the differences you recognize in the way the hobby operates, and more so the community operates in the States versus Canada. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what noticeable differences do you find when you're south of the border versus here?
The noticeable differences is I feel that when I'm in the United States, people really help each other. They really do. I see it from vendors. I see it from the people who put on the biggest trade shows in the United States. There is no so much animosity toward a competitor, if you want to call it that, right? I feel there's unity. Here in Canada, I don't feel the same way. I feel like there's more of a division. There's a lot of people who may not like each other. They can talk bad about each other. They don't help, or they don't want to help. They don't want to get together and I don't want to say form a cartel. That might be a bad word for it, but I find that they don't necessarily want to help, one another. It's all for themselves, and I can't really say much more than that. That's the main difference that I see in the U.S. versus Canada. I see unity there. I see division here.
That's because in Canada, and specifically on the wax side, we're kind of all fighting for scraps, and there's just sort of less to go around. So we're naturally, I guess, more vicious, if you want to call it that.
I think, it has to probably do somewhat with allocations. It could be that, some people have certain cards, or they feel like, people are just very jealous of success. It happens. But I don't feel like it's happens when I'm down in the US, specifically California. I really feel like, people genuinely want the other guy to succeed. And here, they just want you to fall flat on your face. I That's the biggest difference that I see. In terms of the allocations, yeah, it's out of whack. I mean, certainly when I had sluggers, I got great allocations at that time. If you're a startup here, I don't feel like you'll get the allocations you need. Because a lot of the maybe bigger stores, distributors, they have seniority on that. They've been around a long time, or they spend a lot of money, which I can understand to some degree. Obviously, the more you spend, you get a little better treated. I get that, right? But I think when I had a store, I really feel like my allocations were very fair at that time. Today I hear a lot different from many stores that have only been around for maybe 4 or 5 years, right? Compared to the stores that have been around for 20 or maybe even 30 years, right?
We know.
And experience. We are that store. We are in that position.
Yeah.
I think it's tough, and I do feel I have another big view on wax. I mean, that entire market, that might be another podcast for another day. But I have some serious feelings about the wax situation that's
Let's hear it.
currently
Yeah,
out there.
let's hear it.
Well, I feel like the wax is completely overpriced. It's all of it, not just some of it, all of it. And I mean, I can understand the time value of money. I mean, you got to remember, back in my day when I had a store, I didn't have a box. I think over $100 retail. I think $100 up until the cup came out.
Wow.
And then maybe those were like what, 400 or 500, okay, for the cup in like the Crosby Ovechkin year. But there wasn't a box retailing over $100 at that time. No way. And it just got worse as 2019 approached. Because before that, I mean, I was buying, some stuff reasonable, for my collection, some stuff I like to open, whatever the case may be. But now the wax is too overpriced. It's just going to fall. I mean, anybody buying wax, I mean, National Treasures is a pure example, a main example. I'll give you an idea. 2017, I was buying cases for 2,500 American National Treasures. Okay. That was the Jason Tatum year. The year after was Luca, was 3,200. I wasn't keen on paying more, but I did. But then the Zion year was just stupid. $15,000 out of the gate.
Wow.
Okay. Like these prices of Prism and National Treasures and whatever else you want to call it. The distributors or the people that are involved that are driving the prices up, it's only going to fall. I mean, just look at WWE Prism. Great product that came out. Boxes were selling as high as 2,000, but people didn't want to pay it, or it lost its flavor. And now you can buy boxes for what, $400, $300?
About right.
In that range, right?
Yep.
But there's going to be a lot of products that people are tired of paying for. Nobody's going to want to pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a box only to get $100 worth of cards. Mm-hmm. You do that a number of times, you're broke, right? It just can't sustain. It cannot sustain. The wax game is going to fall. So, and it's going to come back to reasonable levels where people can afford. Because once these products, unfortunately, were designed for breakers. They were designed for breakers. And, the regular public, I don't know about you, I don't know too many people spending $1,500 or $2,000 on a single box, a Prism. I'm sure there's a few people that are, but in general, all of it is, and it's slowly coming down. Yeah. Yeah. I've been watching wax over the last 2, 3, even compared to the last 6 or 7. It's all coming down, all of it.
I think everybody wouldn't mind them coming down, but I mean, you know, we always talk about it. It starts at point one, right? Because as a store, you know how the funnel is, right? Panini, Upper Deck, distributor, store, consumer, right? And it's not like a store comes up with a price like, you know, we're gonna sell this for X amount. We're selling this for X amount because we bought this for X amount. You know, add a little bit there. They bought this for X amount. You know, where's the issue? Where is, you know, who's jacking these prices up? Is it the, you know, is it UD? Is it Panini? Is it Topps? Or is it the distributors? You know, like, where is this? Where do we chop it at the legs type of thing?
Well, I'm not sure how to answer that question. Yeah. It could be a combination of everyone you mentioned. Okay.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. But I feel like it's going to change, and it's going to change very soon, because people, I mean, in my opinion, we're heading into a recession, and I just feel like people won't pay. I mean, you've got cup hockey coming out, right? Okay. Are people going to pay $1,200, $1,300 for a tin? I don't know. But if they don't, retailers are going to lose their shirt. They're going to have a lot of product in their store that won't sell because people won't pay for it anymore.
And that's, you know, as a store, a perfect example, right? Like, who's holding the bag, right? Like, we have to stock it, we have to have it.
They need to return product.
Exactly. But
right?
we have to have it. We have to get that product.
That's right. But how much of it can you actually sell?
Agree.
I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, for a product like that, you would, I guess, whatever allocation you get. But a lot of times, I think in the next little while, the higher end products, people are just going to order in what their customers can afford or will buy.
I think this is a perfect segue into, you know, it's changing, wax, all that. Fanatics making some noise. What's your kind of opinion on Fanatics? Where do you think how's it going to affect the market, the wax game, the you know, the end consumer?
Okay. I think it's wonderful. Everyone's going to be on the same playing field. No one should have more than the other guy. Mm-hmm. Everyone should be equal. That's always been my firm belief, right? But, you know, it's hard to make a living when you're getting one box and somebody else is getting 10 cases of a hot product. Yeah. How are you going to pay your employees? How are you going to pay your rent?
Preaching to the
choir. You need those products to you know, generate income. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Sure, everybody would love to get 10 cases of Prism, but it's not happening. You know,
what impact do you think? Like, I know, you know, we've heard some crazy numbers about Fanatics' existing core business, which they have obviously a massive operation in, you know, sports paraphernalia and hats and jerseys and everything else, and their consumer base is really, really large. Do you think they have the ability to, you know, potentially double the size of the sports card market, which I know has been thrown around as something that they can achieve?
I think so, and I think they're going to keep the brand names or they're going to buy the brand names off Panini. Let's just put it that way, right? You know, Panini didn't buy a brand name off Upper Deck when Upper Deck lost the license, right? You know, if you go back to Exquisite Basketball, okay, that was a brand name, Exquisite, but Panini never. All they did was duplicate Upper Deck success by calling their top end product National Treasures, right? So in terms of Fanatics, I do believe they're going to make a big splash. I believe that they're going to probably buy or lease the names, if you want to call it that, from Panini of their brands. They're not going to change their brands to, you know, Fanatics Basketball. I still believe you're still going to be able to use you know, the brand name Prism or Select or National Treasures, that sort of thing, right? But I do feel that they're gonna probably. I mean, look, they're paying a lot for it. I'm not going to say they're not going to make high end products that are going to be unaffordable, but I'd like to think their mid range to low end products would be very affordable, right? Not everybody can afford a Lamborghini, right?
Yeah.
Which is what National Treasures is, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. That it really comes down to price point, in my opinion. I mean, I don't remember anybody paying more back in my day for boxes, you know, and if they had to pay over $100 a box, I mean, they'd be griping about it. You know, I can't even imagine like now with stores, and you know, you have to retail boxes for $1,500, $2,000. It's just too much.
Even more.
You know,
more.
that game's gonna, because it didn't cost Panini any more money from 17 to 19 to make National Treasures, but yet the price went up from 2,500 to 15,000.
Yep.
You know, it can't. I'm just telling you, that game, it's coming to an end, and whether or not it the bubble burst before, say, 2025, 2026 remains to be seen.
Yeah.
No.
I think we have this obviously internal conversation as a business, you know, like, you know, all the time, right? Like, we want all this wax, right? Like, we want it at allocation, but you also have to, you got to sell it, right? Like, prices come down. You don't want to be, you know, you win some, you lose some as a business, and you know, that is what it is. That's part of the game.
But here's the other part to that equation too. Let's just take Prism WWE. Now, say you sold it to your customers at $1,500 or $2,000 a box, and they were just putting it away or whatever the case may be, right? But because of all the nonsense that goes on with these products, okay, that product is now $400 that your customer who paid $1,500 or $2,000, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, they're going to be like, I ain't paying no $1,500, $2,000 a box for it to probably go down to $800 or $700 or $500. Nobody wants to lose that kind of money, and that's where the problem is. The losses in the last year have been far greater than the gains. Maybe the biggest breakers have been making money because they've been getting the allocation, but there are a lot of breakers out there that can't even fill breaks. They can't. You know, maybe the top 5 guys can, but definitely a lot of the breakers that are not as well known, they can't fill their breaks. They don't fill their breaks. They're not buying product. They're not buying product. Those $2,000 boxes are going to 1,000, or they're going to 500. That's it. That's the way it works.
Totally. Karlos, I know you know, we're going to come up on time here, but I wanted to ask you some quick fire questions, because every time I see you at an expo and I come by your display, you've always got some really insane shiny objects. Tell us about, like, I always like asking people with collections as vast as yours, like, biggest card purchase you've ever made.
On one card?
One single card.
Oh boy.
You're probably
thinking of a
patch of
I'm
cards.
thinking a lot. I'm going to say well over 20,000.
Nice.
Well over 20,000.
Biggest
Biggest
sale.
sale.
For one single card.
Nice. What about biggest sale you've ever made?
Oh boy, I made a lot of those.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It depends if we're talking 1990 or we're talking 2022, right? With the time value of money.
Yeah.
But I definitely say in the 10K range, right?
Nice.
I definitely say in the 10K range. It just depends on what it is, the sport and whatnot. But I'd probably say like somewhere in there. Probably like one ever. Most of the stuff I get, I try to get medium range and some high end, but not super duper high end. Because it's nice to have those big cards, but they're very difficult to sell.
They're not as liquid.
And I know I know, speaking to you in the past, like, you love your cards, you love your wax. I think you've called yourself a hoarder in the past with wax and all that. So I know you've got some big boys as well, just probably not willing to sell. Well, I mean, everything's being
stuff I'm not willing to sell. Yeah.
Carlos, last question for you. Trying to see if we can give some value to our listeners here. You know, being in the game as long as you have and having the collection that you have, present day, there's, 15 different outlets that one can go to try to find good deals. They can go to the LCS, they can go to eBay, they can go to Facebook groups, they can go to expos. In your opinion, where are the hidden treasures? What's the best way to find good value on a buy?
I would say the trade shows. I would say a show like Expo, a show like the National. And by the way, if any of the viewers who are watching this have never been to the National, you definitely want to go one time in your life. But those are the ones where I felt like I've got the best deals, right?
Live in
those
person.
are the two shows I would pick in terms of, in terms of the better deals I've ever gotten.
How many have you been to Nationals? How many Expos?
Oh my God. Expo I've been doing since 91. So I don't know.
Whatever that is, 30 plus years.
Yeah, it's 30 plus years. That's like 60 shows.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I've been doing that one. National, I've been doing for a decade.
Nice.
But I've gone to the National in the past, but actually setting up and doing it is something completely different than just walking around. Right?
Totally, of course.
So, but the National is really, to me, that's the biggest show there is on the planet. There's none bigger than the National. I mean, Expo is great. I love the Expo. It's still very hockey oriented. Mm-hmm. The new owner, well, I wouldn't call him the new owner, but Steve has done wonders for that show. I can't compliment Steve enough. He has moved that show into 2022. I give him the highest honors because he continually improves that show. Every time I go, something is different about it. Something more. He's adding, always adding to what is the best show in Canada. Right?
Totally.
It's all about the experience, the customer experience. We always talk about that, wherever you are, it's all about the customer experience.
Thank you, Carlos. Really appreciate you making the time, man. Really appreciate you coming on to this. It's our first podcast. You're obviously a legend for us kids that grew up at Sluggers, so it's always fun to chat.
And so's your mom. And your mom's amazing. We always say it, your mom is amazing. She knows so much about sports cards at the shows. She's always hunting for amazing deals. So
hunts for amazing deals. See, and she's the one who loves buying wax and opening it. Okay, that's why, I would want some of those products to come down in price. She loves opening soccer. She opens everything.
Amazing,
right?
Amazing. Had to give her a shout out.
Yeah,
we'll see you at the expo, man.
Yeah, we'll see you guys at the expo. Looking forward to it. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.